Good afternoon, everyone. Um, Welcome to our February meeting. I had to stop and think about what month it is. Um, Not enough coffee today. All right, I'm calling this meeting to order at 4:03 p.m. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kmahi, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory, and we recognize that we are all treaty people. And for our roll check, Liz, are you here?
Yep.
Great. April,
Here, Andrew.
excellent. June,
Here, Andrew.
Kristen here.
Thank you, Chair. Kristen has not yet joined the meeting.
Okay, how about Miss Mahoney?
I'm here.
Excellent, great to see you, Miss.
Good to see you.
Rochelle, are you here?
I am here.
Excellent. Jordan,
Jordan has not yet joined the meeting.
and how about our counselors? We have our joiner. How about the other three?
I believe that you will find the deputy mayor here.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Nice to be
Counselor
here.
Diggle Gammon, yes. Great to see you, Counselor.
Good to see you too, Andrew, and all.
And Trish Purdy is here as well.
Excellent, excellent, great to see you. And of course, we wish Counselor Russell great, hopefully healing and that his family is around him as he battles all of this trouble. All right, approval of the minutes from the January 15th meeting. We have been sent those. Have we found anything we want to change in those minutes? Hearing nothing, I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Rochelle. I will motion to approve the minutes.
Excellent. Do we have a seconder for that?
This is
This is
June.
Liz.
I heard June, so let's call it June.
Okay.
All right. So June has seconded, Rochelle has moved. The minutes of the January 15th, 2024 Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented. Calling for the question?
Question.
Thank you, Counselor. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Let's now move on to the approval of the order of business. Annie sent that around. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to accept the order of business.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. I have a seconder for that.
I'll do it. Mahoney.
Mahoney, thank you, Miss Mahoney. All right. Please make sure you state the names, which I've done. Call for the question.
Question.
Thank you, Counselor. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Business arising, we have none. Call for delegate declaration of conflict of interest. Do we have any conflicts today? Hearing none. Consideration of deferred business. We have none. Annie, do we have any correspondence?
Thank you, Chair. There is no correspondence received for today's meeting by the clerk's office.
Excellent, thank you very much. Presentations, here we are. Next on the agenda, a presentation from Kelsey Green, Kelsey's from the Complex Trauma Canada. Kelsey, you will have 10 minutes for your presentation, and our legislative assistant, Annie, will let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Following that presentation, the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. Annie will share your presentation, and you can begin once it is up on the screen. So I'll turn it over to the committee after the presentation. Annie, can you put that together, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just bringing Kelsey over to this side of the meeting. Kelsey, are you able to see and hear everybody? Oh,
Go.
hi, Kelsey. There you are. Okay, great. So I will share my screen now, and just let me know when you'd like me to move to the next slide.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you all for making time to speak with me, or to allow me to speak with you, as the case may be. My name is Kelsey Green. I'm a co-founder of Complex Trauma Canada, a nonprofit that works to raise awareness, drive change, and build education while supporting the healing of those with trauma and complex trauma. I think at this point, many people do know what trauma is, and really what we're talking about is psychological trauma rather than physical trauma. If there are any questions with my speaking, please do let me know. I tend to speak a little bit fast at times, but do want to keep within that 10-minute window. So Gabor Mate, Dr. Mate, has a quote that says, "Trauma is not what happens to you. It is what happens inside of you as a result of what's happened to you." If we could go to the next slide, please, Annie. So just a little background on what is trauma, complex trauma, and how is it connected to childhood trauma. So when I'm talking about trauma today, I'll be talking about psychological trauma, and that is a person's experience of emotional distress resulting from an event that overwhelms their capacity to cope. So that's quite a broad definition, and we'll talk more about some examples as we go through. And complex trauma is really repeated traumas over time. And complex traumas generally include, not always, but often include interpersonal traumas. So these are sort of traumas that maybe start in childhood, continue later in life, and you'll see that most traumas that we're talking about are actually complex traumas, whether we're talking about military members, first responders, Indigenous communities, minority groups. They tend to all revolve around these complex traumas, a number of traumas over time. And why this is important is because in childhood, it's a time when we're at an increased risk of traumatic events, of experiencing trauma. But a lot of those traumas, they stay sort of hidden, only to come out later in life. But they do have an impact on how we view our world throughout our entire life. If you could go to the next slide, please, Annie. So some research that's been done says 76% of Canadians have trauma, and 9.2% of Canadians develop PTSD over the lifetime. Those are, for a lot of people, some pretty staggering numbers. For other people, they don't see them as that as high. One thing that is interesting, the worldwide prevalence of PTSD is reported to be 3.9%. So Canada, interestingly enough, is double the worldwide prevalence of PTSD. Next slide, please. So when you're looking at trauma, generally you want to look at first, worst, and most recent traumas. So where this often starts is you start to look at childhood traumas. There is a significant body of research around adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And just one of those factors is childhood maltreatment. So the Canadians report, 6 out of 10 Canadians report childhood maltreatment on some level. 3 out of 10, in that sample, 3 out of 10 report non-physical maltreatment. 2 out of 10 physical and non-physical. So non-physical is emotional, psychological, neglect, things like that. And only 4% of Canadians reported physical maltreatment as a child. Next slide, please. But childhood forms the basis of traumas later in life. A little background on traumatic stress injuries. There's a number that are identified. The first one we're going to talk about is acute stress disorders. These are traumatic experiences that last from a few days to about a month. These are fresh traumas that have overwhelmed the body. Sometimes we see adjustment disorders, and this is a traumatic stress-related condition that occurs when an individual has difficulty coping with something, often a major life change. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is developed after exposure to generally one or sometimes a couple of traumatic events. People with PTSD often have flashbacks and nightmares, severe anxiety about the event. And the last one that is a bit of a newer one is complex trauma, complex PTSD. Complex PTSD is really an exposure to prolonged events where the individual has little or no chance of escape. We see much more in the way of emotional dysregulation, differences in perception of the self, and distorted perceptions of the perpetrator. There's often interpersonal elements there, but it also affects the person's system of meaning. Now, I just wanted to note that traumatic stress injuries are different than moral injuries, although there's often a relationship where someone with traumatic stress injuries, especially PTSD or complex PTSD, can also have moral injuries, but they're a little different. Next slide, please. Children and adolescents. So who's at risk? Children and adolescents, first responders, people in lower socioeconomic levels, Indigenous people, military personnel, healthcare professionals, survivors of abuse and family violence, including coercive control and parental alienation, individuals with pre-existing health and mental health conditions, even ones such as ADHD, persons who are incarcerated, refugees and displaced persons, anyone experiencing significant life changes or stressors. Now, what's also interesting to note is that people in affluent countries appear to be more impacted and more at risk of traumatic stress injuries. Research published in the British Journal of Psychiatry put Canada at the highest risk out of the 24 countries that were surveyed. Next slide, please. When someone else's reaction seems out of proportion to the situation, it usually means someone else was triggered. There can often be a trauma behind that. Next slide, please. So trauma has a powerful impact on our lives, relationships, our communities, and our future. How has our city been shaped by trauma? Has it been shaped in positive ways or negative ways? What changes are needed to help those experiencing trauma? And what changes are coming as we gain further recognition of trauma, mental health, and addictions? And how should people with carrying trauma be treated? These are all questions that I'd like to leave with you today. Next slide, please. So traumatic stress injuries are disabilities. The government of Nova Scotia defines what disabilities are: physical, mental, intellectual, learning, or sensory impairments, including an episodic disability, in interaction with barriers that hinders an individual an individual's full and effective participation in society. So that means, under Nova Scotia's law, as well as in Canada, that employers and service providers have a duty to accommodate persons with disabilities, ergo persons with traumatic stress injuries. Next slide, please. I'm going to challenge that Halifax can do more to accommodate people with trauma, complex trauma, childhood trauma. That might include training staff on invisible disabilities, including traumatic stress injuries. And there may be different training for different roles. People have different interactions with people with trauma. They provide easy access to accessibility coordinators and disability support staff for staff and service users. Recognize that Halifax actions can create traumatic experiences and apply trauma-focused approaches. and engage with persons with lived experience and use legislation to support trauma-focused changes. Next slide, please. Our brains are wired for connection, but trauma rewires them for protection. Next slide, please. So, as an employer, these are some things that you may wish to consider. Is Halifax really accessible for persons with trauma? As an employer, how does Halifax support those carrying trauma who work for the city? As a service provider, how does Halifax support those carrying trauma who seek and access services? This includes police services. And as many people in our community look up to the leaders of our city, what can Halifax do to raise awareness of trauma and help bring those with trauma out of the shadows? Next slide, please. Thank you all very much. I look forward to any questions or feedback you have.
Thank you, Kelsey, for your presentation. And I'm turning it over to the committee for questions and answers. And we'll start that with Kristen. Has Kristen joined us yet?
Thank you, Chair. Kristen has not joined.
Okay. Ms. Mahoney, you have the floor.
Sorry, wow, sorry about that. Technology. Kelsey, that was a really excellent presentation. I'm kind of dealing with this right now. I'm the accessibility officer at the University of King's College. So I'm having colleagues come to me with sorts of like, it's all about education and really it's leadership and managers and whatnot that really needs to be educated on this. It really is. But yeah, no, very great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, let's move on to bring things up here. I'm not seeing my list. There we go. Rochelle, your turn. Do you have any questions for Kelsey?
Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey. That was a great presentation. I feel like you said some things that don't often get said, and that, I mean, especially in spaces that are a little more bureaucratic, to say the least. So thank you. Excited to have you here. I guess I'm wondering, like, what would you like us to provide like feedback on, or like, is there something specific that you're looking to like to happen with this information that we can comment on more specifically?
We're open to any feedback that you have. We get contacts from people in Halifax who are saying, different services we're trying to access just aren't accessible for us because of the trauma that we're carrying. It can be that people get sort of get turned off trying to seek these services. And I think the presentation today was really to talk about a subject that I think most of us probably know a little bit about, but it doesn't always get talked about in the accessibility type space, because these are invisible disabilities that are easy to overlook. You may look at someone and think that that looks like an average person, but they can be carrying something underneath that is a lot heavier for them and causes them challenges in day-to-day living.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. There's a lot of, unnoticed disability in the world. Yeah, I mean, I think I have to think about if I have any other questions. We'll probably do another go around. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Rochelle. Jordan, do you have anything you'd like to address?
My main question that's going around my head today is, how do we get not just the service providers, but other stakeholders in the community to take this on and actually address it? I mean, it's one thing for the municipality to help and address this with the provincial federal governments. At a policy bureaucracy level, that's actually probably the easiest thing to get done, to say it's a good idea, right? Let's take the credit for it. That's good. I see people like the councillors on this committee and the leadership at City Hall, Province House, and Parliament sometimes will take this on, but it gets lost in its implementation. And I think that is another reason why sometimes I find the service providers aren't as accessible for people. I myself have a autism spectrum disorder and a couple other complex traumas with that. One of them that has been a bone to pick with me, and right now, especially more than other times, is that of employment and access to accessible and sustainable employment that pays a living wage. And unfortunately, the only place that I feel comfortable in seeking out employment now is outside of the private sector, because the private sector businesses do not generally provide accessible employment places. Many of it is client facing or for profit, and it's just like it's not accessible for someone they can't really control or make productive, right, in a straight and narrow way. So that really precludes not just people with indivisible disabilities and trauma, it precludes people who have other accessibility needs too. So my question is, like, I see things being done on that front by the government sector, but how do we get the private sector to actually pull up their bootstraps, right, to do differently in that way, and to not just talk about it, but say it? And actually, how can we legislate that they have to actually address it? It's just some food for thought more than anything, but I'm glad that your organization is advocating for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Good, very, very good questions. And while they may be rhetorical, I think it starts, we think at Complex Trauma Canada that it really starts with having the discussion, making it a topic that people understand. We have legislation from human rights, as well as the Accessibility Act in Nova Scotia that are supposed to provide certain guarantees for people. But that, as you noted, doesn't always happen.
Excellent. Councillor Diego-Gannon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, very much. Thank you, Kelsey, for this presentation. My background before becoming a municipal councillor has been 40 years working in the nonprofit sector supporting persons with disabilities. And so specifically a lot of work probably with those persons experiencing very complex trauma and complex PTSD, all those kinds of things. So you're kind of speaking my language, which is great. The slide that you have about complex trauma in Halifax, I think that is the most telling in the presentation about what can Halifax do as an employer, as a service provider, and as an advocate. Those are the places where, as you know, the order of government that is closest to the people, right? Where we and how we support persons who experience trauma, whether they choose to let us know that or not. Sometimes I think that how we present and how we deal with people, if we just always have trauma in the back of our mind, then it's really about a humanitarian approach in a lot of ways to how we do our work. As an employer, I know Halifax has done, or the municipality has done a lot of work. We have grown the business unit around accessibility and inclusion, and lovely, lovely accessibility advocates, and our staff, Melissa Myers, is on this call, and she provides such excellent leadership to the municipality in a lot of ways. And so even now, even when we look at how reports come to council, we're looking at them with a lens of social value, social purpose. I just finished a meeting with procurement people talking about how we look at things from a social value perspective. And I think that also fits here. So when we think about, as a municipality, where do we really, if we are always, our mayor says that we're about people, planet, and prosperity, and the people are so important, because if you don't have the people, you don't have prosperity, you don't have our planet saved. So so I like all of this kind of stuff. One of the things that I think that we will still always find challenging is that people look at this and think about persons who are living with trauma as, well, that's a health issue. But really, it's everybody's issue. And so, yeah, so if I was looking at this presentation, I would probably, build it a little bit about this is everybody's issue. It's not just HRMs or any order of government, but we all need to figure out how do we play well together and do a better job. So just some comments, but I really liked how you laid out the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your feedback, and you're right. It is everyone's issue, and similar to someone with a broken leg, that a traumatic stress injury is just that, it's an injury, and with the proper treatment, it can be healed. So thank you very much.
Yeah, there's just one quick thing, just where you said a moral, one of the slides there, a moral issue.
Moral injury. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a colleague that I worked with in Toronto many years ago, and he did a really nice piece of work around how do you see a moral injury as a result sometimes of the traumatic stress injuries. And he really closed that loop so nicely. And that's the piece where we need to figure out how do we do a better job of supports, understanding the connection between the traumatic stress and the moral injury. So yeah, so I'm out of touch, but I want to go back and read some more work. It triggered my brain again. Thank you.
That sounds like a very interesting piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Purdy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Kelsey. I really appreciated that presentation. And I don't have any questions, and the comments made have already been quite amazing. So thank you. Yeah, it's a very, very deep and interesting topic for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe now Liz, your turn for questions or comments.
Just one sec, I'm just gonna pin the interpreter there.
Okay.
I have to learn to how to pin every time the interpreter switches. I really loved your presentation. It was very, very beneficial to me. I quite enjoyed it a lot. I did write down a couple notes for myself as well during your presentation. When you're talking about PTSD and trauma, I really thought your points were clear and succinct. So I really appreciated that slide. I felt like you weren't kind of just going off on a tangent. You really were giving us straight facts. Something that did throw me off guard was that Canada had a higher rate of trauma compared to other countries. And I didn't think that to be true, just kind of in my own experience. So that was interesting for me to learn. And we have to figure out in Canada as a unit how we can be more safe and have more health resources accessible to us, and figure out what the other countries are doing and how they are being successful, and maybe be able to emulate that and not be afraid of the issue. And I know that, sometimes we don't always feel like where we have the accessibility, depending on where we live and who our people are. So that was just a very interesting point that you brought up that I hadn't realized was an issue. Some countries experience war, or some countries are more prone to familial abuse, and just kind of how everything can impact your mental health and trauma. And now it seems like, especially with Indigenous communities, I've been seeing more and more news about trauma that have happened with their history and their past, and then people with disabilities and traumas from their histories and their past. So, it can be really frustrating when you're trying to communicate your emotions and your trauma with somebody, but you don't have that access and you're blocked off. Physical access, for example, like wheelchair access. You can't enter a building because there's no accessible entryway. It's a similar construct. So really on a personal level, it seems like right now the presentation is focusing more on a systematic level, and I'm wondering if maybe in the future there could be a personal element added to the presentation. But I believe that's all I had on that front.
Thank you, Liz. That's a great idea to add a personal element.
Yes, indeed. April, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And I just wanted to thank you also for the land acknowledgement. It was really lovely to hear that. I feel like this is a great presentation for me since I am Cree Nation, First Nations, Indigenous. And on top of that, I am diagnosed with ADHD, multiple learning disabilities, and I have other disabilities due to an organ that I broke actually. So this hit home easily. And thoroughly. And I wanted to also mention, because another person brought up earlier about the job market, etc. And I work currently with the federal government, and our task force, our equity task force, just filed an amazing report on that, and we're working towards a strong disability accessibility accommodations approach by 2030, in regards to especially where I work a lot in is hiring within the federal government. So it's nice to see some things are moving forward in a positive way. And I wanted to do another shout out to Kelsey. Excellent presentation. All the gears are turning in my head, and truly appreciate it. I'm really grateful to be a part of this today. And Councillor Deagle Gammon, I heard what you were saying as well. And one of the things I want to focus on, especially after listening to Monica there, is again that personal aspect of intersectionality is really key. So you can have me and have all of these different pieces of my intersectionality that make up multiple aspects of what we're talking about today. And a lot of people wouldn't know that unless I felt as comfortable and safe as I do in this environment here today to talk about it. And on top of that, I have 8 dependents who all have a diagnosis as well. So there's that. I do want to do a huge shout out to an amazing Mi'kmaq doctor here in Nova Scotia who handles the ACEs program, which completely correlates with this presentation. And that's the Adverse Childhood Effects program that they're running. And there's a huge attributes to that. So I really recommend looking up Dr. Crane's work. And then lastly, I just wanted to say in regards to oh my goodness, I lost, that's so funny. It kind of goes with who I am, but I lost my last comment. But again, really excited about this presentation and the learning that we've been taught here today. And I'm really looking forward to the next one. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, April. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you. June, you have the floor.
Okay, am I on now?
Yes, you are.
Sorry, I'm technically challenged. Thank you, Kelsey. I thought your presentation was very, very good. Wish I'd been around 30, 40 years ago when I was having difficulties getting work because I had some issues. And I would like to see people with the similar issues getting the help that they need to be in the workforce, to enjoy life as they should do. And I think, Jordan, you just almost word for word said what I feel. So thank you. Everybody else said what I feel. So I'm done. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, June. And Councillor Cuddle, you have joined us. Do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for including me in this discussion. And hello, everyone. I don't think I've met you all. I'm Patty Cuddle, councillor for Spryfield, Sambro Loop, and Prospect Road. I do, and I feel like this is a bit of a safe space, so I'm gonna kind of speak from my heart here. Kelsey, it was a good presentation, and one of the slides that you had up there showed a picture of a burnt house in the middle, and that's in Spryfield, and I was very curious about why you put that picture there. But it took me back to the time when I sat on the Appeals Standing Committee, and we had to make a decision about the demolition of that house. And all the emotions that were wrapped up in that from so many different perspectives, and how, as someone in a position of decision making, how difficult it was for me to navigate that. You know, when we get elected and put in these positions, we don't always have the training to be able to figure out the proper way to do that. And I remember feeling compassion in that case, and extending the demolition order by a few months to provide the individual an opportunity to try to get some things in order. But as a result of that, I heard from other people who were also equally traumatized by that. That house was next to the Barrow House, which was the house in which 7 Syrian kids died in that fire. That was right next door to that house, and had been demolished. So you had a traumatized community there. And then next door, you had the house where the owner intentionally set a fire, and he himself, unrelated, was going through his own trauma, and part of that had to do a lot with his personal life and the people in his personal life that were affected by this. And then you're sitting there in this decision making, the body where nobody has personal relationships to it. So as a counselor, you try to bring things forward in a compassionate way, but it can be complex, not just on an individual level, but in a community. Trauma affects not just the individuals, but everybody around them, and the community around it. And that example is a very good one of one of those situations. So I very much welcome this discussion, and I don't know, I don't have the answers about how we can do better in unpacking some of that, when on the other hand, we're also limited by what we can do at the table, by systemic kind of structures and processes and administrative orders and governance acts. So it's complex to unpack that, but I really genuinely glad that I caught this presentation today, because I really I know the importance of it and how we deal with the public, and it is something that deserves a lot more thought and into how we do things. So thank you very much for that.
Am I able to respond to that? Because I put that picture there because I think it is an excellent example of how trauma is at the center of some of our social challenges. Because I get the sense, Councillor Cuddle, that was a decision that was taken very seriously, and different aspects were really weighed into what to do there. If you're not familiar with that story, that father ran into the house just to try to save the children that night. And after that serious and very tragic event, it sounds like, and the media reported quite extensively on parts of it, that he was quite traumatized by that event, maybe having some survivor remorse. But maybe unable to get actually the help that he needed to process it and deal with it. I know his children were removed from his lives by the courts because they thought that he wasn't in a healthy place at the time, which I think only compounded it. And ultimately, he died by suicide. So that is a really poignant example, and it's a difficult example even for me to report on, of how trauma often doesn't get the support that it needs to get through these what can be very difficult situations and can often lead to deaths of despair. So when I say that I think there needs to be more focus on trauma in our communities and in our leadership and in our services, as Complex Trauma Canada looks more and more at some of these elements, we're seeing a direct connection to serious outcomes. And having a bit more knowledge and awareness up front can lead to better decisions, more support. Just for example, if a civilian is running in to try to save people from a burning building, I think that's probably a pretty honorable person to do that. But do the firefighters know where to direct him or her to get the supports after the fire? Probably not. And I'm not saying that the supports are there. There isn't a lot of trauma therapy yet in Nova Scotia health system. But having the discussions can help lead people to understand, 76% of Canadians have trauma, have experienced trauma. That's what we're seeing at Complex Trauma Canada, and sorry for the difficult story there, but that is the deep hole of trauma that can happen.
Thank you, Kelsey. I was not aware of that. I was not aware of that outcome, and I wasn't even aware in the process of the background. So, thank you for sharing that.
I'm sorry for sharing that, Councillor Cole. I'm sorry, it's not easy.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to Rochelle. She had suggested that she was going to ponder her thoughts. Rochelle, do you have anything further?
Yes, thank you. Lower my hand. I just wanted to sort of point out that, we're talking a lot about like trauma resources when a trauma has happened, and that and also, what to do with a traumatized population, traumatized individuals, etc. I would like to encourage, especially folks who hold authority in position making or positions of authority and decision making power. I think we should be thinking about how much trauma we are causing in our lack of resources and our housing crisis and healthcare crisis and very high costs of living and people being stuck in poverty for a lot of different reasons. That list that you had showed us, Kelsey, of how many intersecting identities are more likely to experience trauma, how many marginalized people are more likely to experience trauma, likely because of the systematic experiences and systematic sort of oppression of these folks. And so I feel it is important to acknowledge how much power we as a committee, but especially, there's some counselors on this committee who do a lot of decision making. And so I urge everyone here to think about, what kind of trauma is the HRM causing in processes of decision making. I'm even thinking to the evictions that happened today, and I didn't hear too much about how that went. I've been working from home today, but I work across the street from Grand Parade Square, and I know that a lot of people were really upset about the way that was handled. So, our lack of resources is causing trauma, and the way we're handling those things is causing more trauma. Okay, that's my piece. Thanks for circling back to me.
You're quite welcome. Jordan, you have your hand up. Would you like to?
Yeah, Rochelle, you just took the words right out of my mouth. And thinking about what we've just discussed, I took a book out at the Halifax Central Library about the Westray tragedy, right? I actually went to university with people from that area. I know people from that. I have family connections up there. I'm on an aunt's side. They didn't know anyone directly, but there used to be a book, a fictional book called 26. It was based on that tragedy. And I also was doing my HR professional designation a couple months ago, and I took a course on occupational health and safety. And OH&S, one of the biggest things one can do is prevention, right? your workers' comp and all these things, prevention. And I mean, there's a process thing to that, but to keep it short, I won't go on the process about all these things. But there's a new movement in occupational health and safety and human resources about general well-being, workplace health and wellness. And I think that also goes to preventing trauma. I was just recently at Cobequid Health Center taking an x-ray, and there was a sign posted up near the clerk's wicket, and it said about acts of violence and harassment against employees. And I'm like, didn't occur to me until now that maybe there was a reason why some of those clerks and admins are threatening labor action, right? And I mean, for HRM, same thing. You have transit and police and fire and emergency. People at customer service. I worked as a teller at a big 5 bank, and there was a lot of trauma taken out on me that caused me to then take trauma out on others when I went back to school, my business degree, and basically against the system, because I just saw how people were treated and that trauma rolls downhill. It snowballs. And how do we do prevention better? It's just all I'm going to say. Prevention, and dealing with it. And how do these processes that private entities, individuals, and public and private corporations do, that could be made better for everyone, and employees and other stakeholders.
Good points. And I will just mention, I didn't really mention it in the presentation, that the trauma propagates through the generations. So it's not uncommon to see trauma happening in generation 1, and it going on for 3 to 6 generations. You can actually see certain traumas happening. So prevention is not only preventing trauma in the person who exists, but in their children as well, in their grandchildren. Now, and I should also mention that, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. It was just making me think, big historian buff here. Halifax itself went through a large trauma. First World War, we had an explosion, right? Then we had the Second World War, threat of another explosion. Those 2 events, you see maybe why affluent places and the world has had an increase in trauma, because we've spent most of the 20th and 21st centuries in a constant state of conflict with people in our own communities and around places. And that's all because of colonialism, basically. So you make a good point there.
Thank you.
All right.
This
thank
is
you,
Liz. I
Kelsey.
do have a question as well.
Okay, Liz, yes.
Yep, one second here. Yeah, just a short question, or 2 things rather. The first is, you were talking about the 76% through that study. How many people were interviewed or surveyed in that study? Do you know exactly?
I could get you a copy of the study. I don't remember at the moment.
Oh, please, I would love that if that's possible. I'm very interested in that. I was just curious how many people were involved in that survey, or that interview process. Because, having a small survey group might not be as accurate representing the whole country, but that's something I just had on my mind, the numbers of that. But, the numbers aren't necessarily the most important thing. It's the services that we provide to help those people who are experiencing trauma or PTSD. Yeah, so yeah, it is quite a serious thing. Yeah, regardless of numbers, helping the ones that are experiencing that, for sure.
I will send the paper to Annie, and hopefully she can get it out to you and to others. Yeah, the importance is helping people. Not every 2 people can, sorry, I was going to start over. 2 people can experience the same event, but only one may carry trauma forward from that event. So what's traumatic to one person may not be to another, and it could be vice versa in another event. So it adds to the complexity of it.
Definitely.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right, thank you, Kelsey, for your presentation. And thank you, everyone, for this very fruitful discussion. We now have some more things to discuss and ponder in this great journey of accessibility that we're on. Okay, next on our agenda, we have Jamie and Kevin. Jamie, I'm going to get you to pronounce your last name for fear of butchering it. Is that all right? Is Jamie even here?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that. And is Kevin up on the call as well?
I haven't seen him in my list of names. Annie, do you have any insight on that?
I am here.
You are here. Excellent. Great
Hey,
to see you,
P, is Kevin Penny? What? What? Hi, Kevin Penny. Sorry.
Yeah, we're all fanning over Kevin. So
Yeah.
yes, Jamie, I'll get you to say your last name. I don't want to.
Yeah, sure. It's Jamie Rigel.
Rigel. All right, thank you. So yes, we have Jamie Rigel and Kevin Penny. They are from excuse me, Sail Able, Nova Scotia. Jamie and Kevin, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Annie will let you know when you have 30 seconds left, and Annie will also handle your slides. Following this presentation, committee will have the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. So Annie, let's start the presentation.
All right, I'll start out. Thank you so much, folks, for giving us the time to discuss a little bit about our organization. I'll just do a quick introduction. My name is Kevin Penny, and I've been a member of Sail Able for over 15 years now, on the board of directors as well as an active member. And I'll get Jamie to introduce himself.
Hi, good evening, and thanks for your time. My name is Jamie Rigel, and I'm brand new to Sail Able, so new, in fact, that I haven't yet participated. 8 months ago, I became injured, and I was a very active sailor before my injury. So from my hospital bed, I researched Sail Able and sent many messages with many eager questions on how to join. Of course, at that point, I wasn't ready to join yet. But once I got out of the hospital, I joined and I met Kevin and the other members. And I'm very excited to start with Sail Able, but I just wanted to mention what it means to me to be able to participate in Sail Able coming this season and seasons going on, where sailing and being around and in the water in general was a massive part of my life. For me, now being in a wheelchair, I felt that I would never be able to return to that same kind of life. But Sail Able, although it's small, it is growing. And I guess this year has grown much more than the previous years. So things are looking really great for it. But for me, personally, I found that it is amazing to be able to still continue the same passion and to meet other people that have the same passion, and knowing that that this is something that we can still continue to do, and do it well and enjoy. And this year, there's lots of exciting things coming up. So where I am the newest, and then you have Kevin, who is a veteran here. Kevin will be able to answer a lot more information than I'll be able to, but I'm very excited to be able to tell you about my excitement for Sail Able this year, and participate in this going forward. Thank you, Kevin. And next slide.
Thank you, Jimmy. I think you put a great perspective on what sailing means to you and what it means to many other individuals. I know Michelle has gone sailing with us before, so I don't know if Andrew has or not. I'm not sure, but we have a little presentation here. It's nothing too extensive. It's just a few slides, but I just want to kind of go over kind of where we are and what's exciting happening, and maybe there'll be some questions and some opportunities to collaborate. So, Annie, if you want to switch to the next slide. So we wanted to give you a little bit of a overview of what happened last year with our organization. During COVID, like many nonprofit organizations or recreational organizations like ours, we were very challenged of getting people out on the water with disabilities because of the restrictions. So really last year was our really first time that we really had rebounded from that COVID challenges that we faced. As you can see, we started our program last year. We started it around the middle of June and went till the end of August. We had 2 sailboats that we were operating with 2 full-time instructors. So we had a possibility of having about 300 slots or sessions available, an hour and a half long sessions. We were able to fill over half of those, which were great. And out of 6 of them were like out of 6 were canceled due to weather, which we can't control. So if you want to go to the next slide. So kind of a little bit of overview of our program last year is we did have 33 members, people who had signed as members to go sailing. And I know the volunteers looks a lot, but that could be, we had many people who signed up as volunteers to help with different activities, some training, some volunteers to go out with our sailors to assist them on the water, the sailing experience. We had a really good year last year because our board really got formulated and strengthened, and we created some specific training programs for volunteers who wanted to come on board. So that's on the water and off the water activities that people might be interested in. A new thing that we had last year, which was instrumental in helping the growth of our program, is we had an administrative position. So that individual was responsible for booking sales for individuals, keeping track of things, taking payments, reminding people of their sales, setting up social activities, things like that, which was always in the past, we would rely on our instructors to do that. And it became difficult for them to balance both of those types of things because their specific focus is getting people on the water and teaching them how to sail and giving them those opportunities. We did have a couple of collaborations last year, which was really good. We collaborated with the March of Dimes, where individuals came out for an afternoon with their participants, and we had the opportunity to get them out on the water. And then there was a youth camp that came out and Building Future. So we like to connect with other nonprofit organizations that provide programming or supports for persons with disabilities and have them involved in our program. Go to the next slide. I talked about the volunteer training day. You can kind of see here's how it exists. You can see lots of volunteers next to our boat there, kind of looking at the boat. There's a lift there as well, as you can see. If you're able, that allows people to get in and out of the boat. So that volunteer training day was so successful because we had so many people have hands-on experience, and we did have some of our participants there on hand to talk about their experiences and be used to help get transferred in and out of the boat and then take people out on the water sailing. Okay, you can switch the slide. So we're very excited about this year, our 2024 season. It's not really sailing weather out there right now, but we're in full stride getting things prepared for this upcoming season. We did participate in the Halifax Boat Show, although the snowstorm that happened during that weekend kind of minimized some of the impact that might have had, but we did have a booth there where we showcased our program and had a volunteer sign-up list if people were interested. And overall, I mean, I think it was fairly successful, and we did get some traffic coming by our booth. Once again, we're going to have a volunteer training day on June 8th. That's where we'll invite volunteers to come out and go through some training modules and getting some experience and decide where they want to participate within our organization. Every year we have a kickoff barbecue where we kind of invite people to come down and try it for a day or and that's where we kind of get our boats going out for 15 to 20 minute sessions just to get people to feel what it's like to be on the water in a boat. Some people are nervous about that, but it's a really good opportunity for people to try it and to socialize with other people who are also interested in our organization. After that barbecue, we kick off with our first day of sailing in June. We do have some different events during the year. We have an ice cream social where we invite our participants to come out and come down to the club, possibly go sailing, but we do provide some ice cream. It's just more of a social event to try to get camaraderie between our participants. And one of the big things that's going to end this season, which we're really excited about, is the Mobility Cup, which is an international regatta for persons with disabilities. And that is happening right here in our province this year in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. They have a Sail Able program there as well. So that's a 5-day event where people from all over Canada and the US will come to Nova Scotia and race for a week of racing, and it's always a good time. We'll have more information about that as it comes closer, because it's always a great opportunity for people to come out and see persons with disabilities competing on an equal playing field. You can switch the slide. Just our budget at a glance list, because we never used to kind of share these numbers, but for our program, it's really challenging financially to run this program. It's a 10-week program, and our costs can be pretty expensive. For example, like even salaries for 2 instructors for that 10 weeks can be up around $20,000. We did purchase a 3rd boat this year, so we'll be able to expand our programming, having 3 boats as opposed to 2, which will be great for many factors. We'll be able to get more people out on the water. We'll be able to expand our race team so that we can practice for the Mobility Cup and do racing throughout the summer. And we did get a funding grant. You can see a picture here. We did get a brand new safety boat last year through a grant that we applied for through the province of Nova Scotia. So that boat will give us the ability to run our programming in a safer way so that individuals or coaches can be available to help people if they get into any situations or whatnot. And that's a really integral part of our program is safety. So you can kind of see we had some revenues last year. We raised some money, which is great. And now this year we're going to have to move forward and try to make our ends meet. One big price or cost that we have that is challenging for most disabled sailing clubs across the country is insurance. For a 10-week program, our insurance, this was last year, was around $4,500, but where we're adding a couple new boats, that'll go up around $6,000. So we're really hoping that we can make ends meet. I think we will. We have in the past, so we're pretty confident. We've got some fundraising goals that we're going to start putting forward and doing some presentations like this to organizations who might be willing to donate. All right, if you want to go to the next screen. Talked about we like to collaborate, so maybe if anyone knows of any funding opportunities within HRM that we could apply to. As I said, the Mobility Cup is coming in 2024, so in August, so we're really excited about that. I know I am as a racer. I enjoy that time, and I meet a lot of friends and have continued friends from the many cups that I've been to. And if anyone had any other recommendations of other organizations we could collaborate to promote our program more, we'd be certainly open to those thoughts and ideas. So just to kind of in closing, I guess, just to summarize things, we're excited about our expansion this year to provide more opportunities. We're pretty confident that we're going to get 2 full-time instructors for this year, which will be great, and hopefully an admin person. We have applied for some Canada Summer Jobs funding, which we've done in previous years. So hopefully those grants will come through to help offset some of the costs of our programming. And as I said, we're looking forward to collaborate and hope that this year will be a very successful year for our organization moving forward. Andrew, I think that's all I've got right now. If that sounds good, I don't think there's anything else but we're certainly willing to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Jamie, for your presentation. We are going to move to questions and answers, but I will allow me to speak first. I started kayaking a few years ago, and I found that one of the great pleasures of being on the water, especially in a kayak, is what I need to do to propel and what you need to do are the exact same thing. So wherever, in so many other contexts, I do something different than others to get around and not in a kayak. So that's one of the great freedoms of being on the water. So just a little anecdote there.
Just to expand on that a little bit, Andrew, that's one good thing about sailing is it is one of the more adaptable sports. Our sailboats are specifically designed for persons with disabilities, and there's actually specialized technology that allows us to configure the boat so people can sail it with, like myself, I use sip and puff technology, so I actually blow and suck on straws that allows me to control the boat. So once we get on the water, it's a level playing field, and we have many people with many different abilities competing against each other. So yeah, kayaking I've heard is very similar.
Wonderful. Miss Mahoney, you are first on my speaker's list.
Wow. So Kevin, I might come out again and try it again. I think life just gets so busy, right? But is there a cost associated for participants?
There is. So we do have a membership fee of $25 that every member has to apply for. And mainly most of that money goes to Sail Nova Scotia in the form of being a member of them. But and then on top of that, we have a couple of options that people can do. We have had to increase our cost just because of the cost of insurance, but we feel it's still a viable opportunity. We have a 10-week package where someone can go for like one sail per week, and that would be $250 for those 10 days or 10 things. Or if people don't think they can get out that much, they can book just individually, and it would be about $35 per sail. And we haven't had much pushback about our costs. It used to be a little bit cheaper, but with costs and increased insurance, we've had to, and limited grant opportunities, to be honest, to raise some money. A lot of the grant funding that we apply for is so specific that you can't use it towards operation expenses like insurance. So there is a cost, but most of our families and participants that do it don't find it as being a barrier to them. And we're always open to, if cost is a barrier, we will look at those things on an individual situation and ensure that we can move around that to get people out on the water as much as we can.
That's really good. I'm really, really happy to hear that because, like I ski in the winter and I pay a membership fee for the season, right? And I mean, I think that as a sporting, I think it's okay to charge, and that seems like a reasonable amount.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't be able to stay if no pun intended, if we didn't have that revenue stream coming in. I mean, even that cost doesn't cover our operating expenses, so we rely on other things. And we've been really good at getting some fundraising, and this year we're hoping to get even more fundraising. We actually have a fundraising committee, so there you go.
Well, that's great. It's come a long way from when I tried it out a few years ago. So I'm really, really happy to hear all of this, Kevin. Good on you.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it.
I look forward to meeting you too, Jamie.
You as well.
Okay, Rochelle, do you have any comments or questions about this?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for that presentation. Great to meet you too, sort of. Yeah, I mean, mostly just a comment. Like my background's in recreation therapy, and so like did some of that mostly before I became disabled. I'm still kind of doing it. It's, it's complicated. But like I just know how important like people doing things that are fun and that they like is for like their well-being and overall enjoyment of life. I'm like such a proponent of that and have been aware of Sail Able for some time. So it's cool to have you here and hear a bit from you.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, also like super exciting to hear that you're generally like open to having conversations with people who aren't able to afford some of the like it's expensive to like run an adaptive sport thing, of course. It's like not a cheap venture. And yeah, having opportunities for more people to be able to experience that is so important and such a big, part of like a lot of what I used to do. And that was always like a big thing for me. So I'm happy to hear that. And I know that I thought maybe there was a thing in the HRM, but this is something that maybe could be considered in the HRM of like bursary type opportunities for people to, get some cash that they can choose what activities they want to do that aren't from the HRM, let's say, just as an idea of something that could exist, just putting it out there.
I'm glad you put it out there. Yeah, that'd be amazing if people could apply for whatever, whether it was kayaking, sailing, basketball, soccer, whatever folks wanted to do. If they could help cover the cost of that programming, that would be great.
Water ski.
Right?
Water ski,
Yeah.
ski.
I heard there's adaptive curling I've been like vaguely interested in, but haven't gotten a chance to get into it. So yeah, like lots of different things. And then people can find their niche and what fits for them. So I'm just putting it out there as an idea. Maybe it exists, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, thank you for that presentation. It was great to hear from you.
No worries, thank you.
Okay, Jordan, do you have any comments or questions?
April has their hand up. I'm going to let them go first, and then Mr. Chair, I will go after them. That's okay.
Thank you.
Because they have their hand up, and sometimes on Zoom, as the chair, you may not be able to see it. So I'm letting them.
Yes, thank you. April, do you have anything? Yes.
Hi, everybody, and thanks so much, Jordan. You didn't need to do that. I really appreciate it, though. Love the presentation again. I'm really vibing with the presentations today for sure. I learned so much. Really appreciative. Appreciate it, Kevin and Jamie. I'm super grateful. I'm going to reach out actually because I have a group of youth that I'd like to connect you with. And then I also have a bunch of you're doing fundraising. Well, I know how to, I know some connections for some grants and etc. That would be completely applicable to this. So love to just connect you to that too. I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. I'm super excited. This is the first time I've actually heard of this. And you said you were looking at maybe some partners or people that you can connect with, and you probably already know her. And on top of that, you probably already are connected to them. But Reachability and Tova Sherman saw an amazing presentation by Tova several months ago at the oh my goodness, the Marine Institute, the place in Dartmouth that's oh, I can't remember the name of it, but anyways, amazing presentation, really correlates with a lot of the things that you're saying. And I know that Tova would have some connections that would be great too. So happy to connect you to Tova too, if you're interested. Either way, I'm going to reach out. Thanks so much for everybody who put this meeting together. Yeah, just greatly appreciated. And thanks again, Jordan. That was super kind of you. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say next.
Well, April, I'll just respond to you quickly. I think Annie would have our email address if she wanted to get that to you. If you had any opportunities, you could connect that way and then perhaps set up a meeting or an opportunity to collaborate so that we could look into some of these possible opportunities.
Excellent. Jordan, I will turn to you. Your comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and no worries, April. It's my pleasure. I actually just remembered what the name of that place is. It's like the old Coast Guard base near the McKay Bridge, I think. Cove, like kombucha Cove. Sorry, just a little bit off topic, but kind of interesting because it is related to DFO and the Coast Guard and marine things. But yes, I actually like others. I do have some connections. I used to do the Yachting Association White Sail program when I was a kid at Alsford Lake Yacht Club. White Sail 1 was great. White Sail 3 was great. White Sail 2 in between was not as good because it wasn't really a trauma-informed or a welcoming environment that year. and some of the people I had made friends with the previous year in White Sail 1 weren't there to kind of help me as peer mentors. Again, having autism, I acted very differently. And I ended up meeting 2 of them later on in Acadia University, and both of them had issues too. Sometimes you never know what people are have behind with their life, you know. And the other thing is about that Armdale Yacht Club. I go to a religious institution church up the Northwest Arm, Joe Howe there. And one of the members of the council at that parish is a member of the Armdale Yacht Club. And I saw the agenda come out and I'm like, this is so cool, Sarah Jane. Do you know anything about this? She's like, I've not heard of Sailability or Sailable. But she did mention that they had a program at that yacht club. And I'm like, well, Sarah Jane is the treasurer of said organization at my church. So I can reach out to her for like the setting and stuff. And it seems they're already looking into unrepresented communities, and the club master or whatever, I forget what the term is, was actually in the news last year saying like we need to reach out because otherwise a lot of these yacht clubs for the community are gonna go by the wayside, right? And it's gonna be a more elite thing, but this is really great. I mean, skating was another issue of mine until I did sledge hockey. I had never been able to play hockey on a pair of ice skates. With my surgery, which is now basically may disable me in some way physically for the first time. I was never able to skate. I never was really good at running. I can't do rapid loading because of issues with my Achilles tendon. And when I finally got the chance to say I played hockey and I enjoyed it for once and I could skate with the sledge, it really made everyone much more equal. You know, and there were people who I knew who were Acadia Axemen hockey players, and they struggled to play it, and I was doing better than them. So it was really kind of a boost for my ego, and they didn't care. They're like, I'm having fun. I can do this and not have to worry about scoring goals. It's really an like not an equalizer, but it makes people, I guess, brings humility and brings confidence to people, and I think that is a good thing. You know, as the chair Andrew said about it being more opening to people of different backgrounds and different abilities. Thank you so much for being here.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I just wanted to mention that our club is out of the Royal Nova Scotia Yacht Squadron down on Purcell's Cove Road. And we've been there since 2008, and they're a very welcoming environment for our program. And we're very well tied with them. So that's great.
I tried sledge hockey for the first time while I was actually still in the hospital on a weekend, but I wasn't so great. And I wasn't good at skating before my injury, but I definitely still am not great at skating at all. But it was fun to try. I want to try it again.
Okay, what about skating at the Oval? Have you tried that?
I haven't brought myself to try that in a mass population area again, but I do want to give sledge a try again.
I want to do that as well. I just put that in the chat. That's the next thing I want to try too, because I've never tried it. So
the sledge grinders run out of Bedford at the new rink there Sundays. Yeah.
PMO Center, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you like follow. Sorry, I'm getting totally off the topic. But it's this kind of weather. We should be doing this kind of weather. But I don't know if you like fall over in the sledge or if you have to like hold yourself up.
You can adjust the blades actually. So it's when you start out, like my blades were about this wide, and there was a 6-year-old with them paper thin like that. Doing circles around me. So I guess it's a skill-based thing. And yeah, but you don't fall over too much when they start out wide.
Okay. Thank you for that.
All right, Councillor Diego Gammon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to meet you, Jamie. And Kevin, it's been a while since I was in your good company. And thank you for the presentation. I mean, we're digressing into sledging, but I remember introducing sledging about 25 years ago or so at the Gray Arena to some people with disabilities that I was supporting at the time. So it was a long time ago when we were talking about sledging, and I think we bought the very first sledges in the municipality. Could even be more than 25 years ago. Anyway, but in terms of Sail Able, Kevin, we've heard so many nice stories and so many testimonies about the value of Sail Able. And yeah, so a lot of the people that I know that have participated, it's an amazing project. So, I mean, I know that you guys know about the Grants for Special Events program at HRM. There are a lot of grant opportunities. Councillor Cuddle is joined us on this meeting today, and I know that that's probably in support of Sail Able as well. So in the, especially in the project, the event that's coming up in August, you know, getting all of the councillors together, although we can't, it's not a capital thing, so we can't use district capital, but sometimes councillors can all get together and become a sponsor for an event.
Oh, great.
Right, as a way. So I'm sure that Councillor Cuddle will champion that, and Councillor Purdy and I will be right on top as well. So it'll be a new budget year, so we'll make sure that some money is aside. And I think
we've reached out to some councillors, just sorry to interrupt, but we have reached out to some councillors about within HRM and have had some conversations with them about providing some support. So that's great.
Yeah, and it's really great when you can get all of us together, because, you know, sometimes what people will do is if you've got so much from the councillors, and then somebody else might match what the councillors can provide. So there's opportunities like that. But yeah, also look at the grants committee and those grants that are available. Some of them will just be opening up again. So there's some good options there. And I look forward to coming out and having a gander. See you.
Oh, great.
Thanks.
Everyone
That'd be awesome.
We'll send invitations out to our opening season barbecue. It's a great spot to come down and meet some of the representatives and see what we're all about.
Yep. Did I see that date was June though? Early June?
I think so. I think it's June 15th, I think it might have been.
Yeah, I think June 5th, Councillor Cuddle and I may be at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference then. Is that June 5th, Councillor Cuddle?
I believe it's earlier in the month.
Okay, so we might be back.
All right, then. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, just a quick question. Yeah, I was going to say, Liz asked, what is sledge? And I wondered if somebody could say what it was. Sort of like a sled, but it's meant to be used on ice. Yeah, like can anybody that does that, like Jordan, can you explain what sledge is, since you've done it?
Yeah. Short, Jordan, I'm going to cut you short just because we're running close to our end time. Short answer is sledge is adaptive hockey.
Yeah.
So anything you would see in hockey is pretty much what you would see in sledge.
It's also just think of a skate, but you sit in the skate and it's a chair.
Yes. So Liz, do you have any questions or comments about Sail Able?
Yes, I do have some questions. I know that mainly, to my understanding, Sail Able focuses on individual in wheelchairs or anyone with mobility needs. Is that true? I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar. If you have a lot of connection with the deaf and hard of hearing community, because if possible, you know, well, I don't know, maybe I'll just leave it for you to explain. But to my understanding, you don't have you had experiences with guided sledging or anything like that? I'm just curious.
That's a great question. I mean, a majority of our individuals do have a physical disability or a mobility impairment, but we do We've had individuals with neurodivergence who are on the autism spectrum that have come out. To be honest, I don't know if I recall if anyone is identified as deaf or hard of hearing, but we don't turn anybody away. I mean, it's a majority for people with physical disabilities, but sailing is for everybody. And we're very excited this year as we're connecting with CNIB. So we're going to have some of our first blind sailors coming out. So that's going to be a new experience for our organization. Blind sailing is quite common or quite popular across the world to the extent that they have world championships. So we're really excited to bring that group. But if there is, we don't turn anybody away, I wouldn't say. I guess that's what it comes down to. We want to give people the opportunity to get out on the water who are marginalized and might not have another opportunity, because one thing, sailing is very expensive. If you own a sailboat, as I know Jamie used to and I used to, it can be very expensive to maintain, and the fees to be at a yacht squadron, it could be very expensive. So it makes this a little bit more accessible for individuals from all economic backgrounds.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I just recently a group of deaf and hard of hearing individuals went kayaking and canoeing. So we've started kind of getting into the water sports, but something like sailing, you know, it's something that would be a great opportunity, you know, to get a group together and head out on the water, or kind of just experience what that would be like and learn what sailing's all about. You know, I think that's something that's very interesting. I know personally, I am. My father, he was a sailor himself, so it's something that definitely really interests me. That's why I was curious if I could pop in maybe. So.
Oh, for sure. 100%, Liz. Everyone's welcome.
Great.
And you can find us on, we have a Facebook group as well. So you can find us on there. And I believe our schedule should get posted there at some point. Yeah, look forward to seeing you.
Great. June, do you have anything you'd like to talk about?
June, you're muted.
Sorry, I
Oh.
keep getting that, don't I? I did not know that there was a sailing group in Halifax, and I'm really impressed that there is. I have a cousin that's been volunteering for 15 years in Burlington, Ontario, and they take out, as you said, everybody is welcome. So anybody can go out on the boats. And I'd like to know a little bit more maybe about helping out. I used to know a lot. I love canoeing. And there's no reason why, you know, people couldn't, as you say, kayak, canoe, sail, and do everything that they want to do. So I'm impressed. Thank you, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. No, we have a really good team. It's not just me and Jamie. There's a great team behind us that are working hard to make this happen and make it expand. So yeah, we'll certainly send information. And you know, like Jamie said, our Facebook page is our best way to promote things, and it's actually Sail Able Nova Scotia. So yeah, go on board there, and we'll be posting stuff. Things will start ramping up in the next couple months. So there is a light at the end of this tunnel of winter, I think.
Yes, for sure. Councillor Cuddle, I'm going to go to you to finish our discussion. Do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Andrew. And yeah, well, Deputy Mayor Daigle Gammon, you know, she's right on the money. She knows me. I am here today to support Sail Able, and to look at ways that we can further support it. You know, just a couple of comments, and partially in support of what Rachel was saying earlier about how do we provide more opportunities to recreational activities in the HRM. And, you know, there's some programs where the expertise and the specialty, like the specialty equipment required and the training required and you know, the supports are not something that the municipality is very well adapted provide, right? Because it's so specialized. And so finding, you know, groups like Sail Able who are developing that expertise and investing in that equipment to provide these opportunities. As a municipality, I would very much like to find more ways to support what you do because it's such a unique offering. And, you know, whether it's supporting Sail Able or people to go and participate in the activity, I'm really happy that that Jamie and Kevin, that you're here today and opening up this conversation. You know, I'm a sailor. I'm over here in Spryfield, so I've got the Squadron and I've got the Armdale Yacht Club here, and you know, I being on the ocean is one of our unique propositions living here in Nova Scotia. It's one of our unique assets, and we are a province, an ocean province, with a long history of sailing. And over time, you know, it used to be everybody sailed because that's how you got around, and that began to get kind of whittled down. And I do have a fear that it was becoming exclusive, but there's no reason for it to be that way. And as someone was talking earlier, I think it was you, Jordan, talking about the program at Armdale, the Broader Reach program, which was introducing sailing to newcomers, or to people who had never sailed before and were kind of didn't know how to get in. And that's a great program too, very supportive of that. But Sail Able is, like, you know, really specific to, you know, the accessibility community and providing this kind of really unique thing. This summer, we also, does everyone know what event is coming here this summer? Big event besides the Mobility Cup. Mobility Cup is the most important one, but another one, that a lesser one, Sail GP is coming, right? So that's a super exciting opportunity for Halifax that really showcases us as a sailing city, as a sailing province. And with that, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement generated around sailing. And so how do we further help support and build the programs that already exist so that more people have these opportunities to get out on the water and really have that, you know, have that experience. So that's what I'm here about today. And for the funding, as Councillor Daigle-Gammon mentioned, there are ways in which the councillors are able to support this program. I'm also thinking maybe you should come and present to community planning and economic development, which looks at recreation. I mean, right now we're looking at this through an accessibility lens, but I think we need to look at this in a general recreation lens, and how do we expand our recreational offerings in the city? But perhaps we can talk about that offline. For the funding, I had a meeting with, with Orr? I think he's the new director of the board.
He's our president, yeah.
The president, yeah. He's wonderful. What really great. You know, but other things, like whether it's, I think life jackets were on his list. We're trying to come up with a list of things.
Yeah.
And they're
exactly.
Yeah, to the life jackets.
Yeah, no, there's we have a wish list, I think, things that we need to do to promote safety of our program, and some of our assets need some love, but we're working on that now, and hopefully it'll be good. And just to bring back about Sail GP, we plan on having a presence during that. It's a whole week-long event. I think the actual sailing is June 1st and 2nd, but for a week prior to that, there'll be many things going along on the waterfront. We hope to have our boat down there and maybe have some opportunities to connect with them, and they're really big on that partnership. So that hopefully will bring a lot of notability to our program and some visibility and publicity, hopefully.
Yeah, great.
Perhaps we can get our own F-50 so we can join in with Sail GP. if anyone hasn't seen Sail GP, they're 50-foot catamarans that foil over the water. They can do upwards of 90 kilometers an hour. So it'll be really exciting to see that on the right downtown Halifax by George's Island.
We're pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you'll have a presence there, and I think that's probably one of the benefits too of being part of Sail Nova Scotia supporting and spreading the word of all the programming we have here. So with that, I will say thank you, and Councillor Purdy and Councillor Daigle Gammon. Yeah, we can talk about this more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cattell, for coming on and getting us on the agenda.
Councillor Purdy, you have the floor to end our conversation on this.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I've just been receiving news after news. It's not been good. Thank you for this presentation. My only concern was the grant. Like, were you aware of HRM's grants? Are you able to take advantage of them? And also for our capital district funds that our deputy mayor mentioned as well. We are very happy to support great initiatives like this. So please reach out, and yeah, always happy to support things like this. So beneficial, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for this very fruitful discussion. And I love all this talk about June. February isn't always my favorite, so thinking about June is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you to Jamie and Kevin for this presentation.
Thank you.
All right, now let's move on to the next agenda item. We have information items brought forward. I'm seeing none. Is that still the case?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is.
All right. Committee members, updates and staff. Still none?
That is correct.
Okay. Added items, we have none. The date of our next meeting is March the 18th. So that's when we will all see each other again. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
This is Rochelle. I will motion to adjourn.
All right, we do not need a seconder for that. So this meeting has adjourned at 5:40 p.m. Thank you, everyone. It was a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks.
you,
Have a
everyone.
good evening. Bye.
Thanks for